Welcome back, everyone. POW Ponder Weather here. We've got a major snowstorm and ice storm on the way, as well as we'll break down all the details for you over the next 10 days so you can plan ahead and know what to expect. So let's start off with the overall hazard map this morning, and it is lit up, guys, with this major snowstorm that looks to unfold over the next several days. We've got numerous winter storm warnings blinked across a good chunk of the west coast here, reaching all the way down into southern California, if you can believe that or not, and some of those higher elevations. But that goes and extends into the Flagstaff area, back into the Santa Fe area. Spotted blizzard conditions across the western slopes of Colorado, back into Utah, even into Wyoming, back into Cheyenne, places like into Casper, Wyoming. We'll see blizzard-like conditions, snowing big time there in Billings. But we've got numerous winter storm warnings and newly warned blizzard warnings happening for Sioux Falls, back into the St. Paul area, into the Minneapolis area. That snowstorm just continues all the way through Wisconsin, as well as into Michigan. Then it just even actually continues up here into the New England areas. Well, they'll be picking up some hefty totals as well. Further to the south, we're going to be having a well above average temperature anomalies. And we also have a newly upgraded slight risk for severe storms, as this system will be racing across about 50 miles an hour starting late tonight into the overnight tomorrow morning time frame. We have to be looking at some severe storms up here towards the Tulsa area, back into portions of Kansas, as well as into Missouri. But let's break this thing down for you as far as the temperature goes, because we're going to be seeing huge temperature gradients over the next several days, with these well above average temperature anomalies really starting to build across the southern plains, as well as into the southeast and predominantly most of the east. While we've got true Arctic air really plunging southbound, these are actual temperatures this morning around 7 o'clock. You can see where the Arctic air is well below zero up there in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Man, that really Arctic air building in Ontario as well as in Quebec. That a piece of that will funnel southbound. You can already see it's entering portions of North Dakota and Minnesota, checking in at 13 below zero. So let's break this thing down for you over the next 48 hours. So this is what the radar could look like about 2 o'clock this afternoon. And so how you would read this map: the blues indicate the snow, and the darker blues is basically indicating the heavier snows. Where all you see the pink shaded areas, that is freezing rain. And again, the darker shaded color is meaning there's heavier amounts of freezing rain. On the rain side, the light green areas, that is more or less your very light rain shower. Anywhere in your yellow shaded areas, that is more moderate rain. And then anywhere in the red and the orange shaded areas, that is a little bit of your heavier rains at that particular time. So about 2 o'clock, we should see snow starting to fly in a good part of the Intermountain West. That'll feed through portions of Nevada, getting into Utah here, into Wyoming, as the initial stages of our snowstorm looks to unfold across Minnesota and Wisconsin, with the newly system of ice trying to form there in Sioux Falls. And I think that's going to be a big threat going forward, as this will really start to build over time. Going into about 1 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're going to be watching this trough that's going to be racing across the desert southwest, that are inner portions of North Texas, bringing some light to moderate rains. Like I mentioned, these are going to be quick moving storms. So you're going to have some gusty winds, 40, 50 miles an hour, swinging through North Texas, going into the Oklahoma City area, back into the Tulsa area, through portions of Kansas here into Missouri, with some heavier gusty winds. And they do have that severe threat where we have to be concerned about maybe an isolated tornado. But time of day is not really on your side. But still, you have to be looking at some possible spin up tornadoes you can't rule out in this type of atmosphere, while the snowstorm really starts to get cranking up here and really starting to develop, as we get into the overnight hours. But it really starts to transform into tomorrow morning about 9 o'clock. That's where we see the severe threat should more or less be over by then, swinging across with just light to moderate rain, some heavier rains at time across portions of Missouri, back into Illinois. And then this to the north here, this is where the sector of ice really starts to form in a good part of central Iowa, getting into southern portions of Wisconsin, and especially into southern portions of Michigan here. Have to be concerned about really accumulating ice in those areas, while the heavier snow is just trains 1 to 2 inch per hour snowfall rates will be cranking by then. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns on North America, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel. It's also important to hit the like button as well. It definitely helps out more than you know. And if you're in the market for a weather station, I definitely highly recommend the Tempest Weatherflow weather station. It's the one I personally have had myself. A lot of people have taken advantage of this offer, which they still have extended. It does, in fact, give you $40 off using the best WX code at checkout and free shipping. It's all solar. They have this convenient little app. You can actually tie it in with your irrigation system. It's really cool. But yeah, if you'd like to purchase one of these, I'll have the link in the description below so you can easily click on it and order one for yourself. So wow, like take a look at tomorrow night, because by tomorrow night it really starts to get cranking. This is when we're looking at 1, 2, maybe 3 inch per hour snowfall rates really start to unfold in parts of Minnesota here, getting into Michigan. Places in Minneapolis could see almost up to 2 feet of snow with this particular system. Green Bay, easily a foot of snow. Northern portions of getting into Wisconsin into Michigan here, that snow will start to crank in portions of Vermont and New Hampshire back into Maine. And then the damaging ice will be really prolific across these regions of Iowa, portions of southern Wisconsin, southern portions of Michigan, even into Pennsylvania. We'll start to see some ice with this particular system and portions of upstate New York as we get into tomorrow night. And as we go into Thursday morning, look how long the snow lasts in Minnesota. That's where it's a prolonged event with just very heavy snow pounding those areas for an extended period of time, while we just have relentless systems coming in off the West Coast where they're experiencing well below average temperature anomalies and well above average rains, especially along the coast. And we could be even looking at maybe some snow flurries back down into Southern California, even getting really close to Los Angeles regions. But wow, these winds are going to be cranking with this system that's coming across. These are the estimated wind gusts that looks to unfold just over the next 48 hours. So yeah, I mean, this is the graph on the right-hand corner of the screen. Anywhere in these red shaded areas, you're going to be seeing wind gusts of 60 miles an hour. These browns upwards to hurricane force winds. These are really prolific winds are going to be racing across. As I mentioned, this system's going to be flying at 50 miles an hour. So it'll be in and out very quick, but it'll lift a quick burst of wind. So that's why we see numerous wind advisories, or we will have wind advisories be issued before this system gets here. But this is the latest update. This is the official forecast from the National Weather Service. And man, look at that. Madison, 16 to 21 inches. Twin Cities, 19 to 25 inches of snowfall. That's just anywhere in the red shaded areas, 16 to possibly 2 feet of snow with this particular system. Sioux Falls, anywhere from 11 to 16 inches of snow. In fact, if Twin Cities gets anywhere from that 19 to 25 the National Weather Service has projected, this is the all-time record, even for the Twin Cities areas, back from 1884, since they started records in those areas. And these are the biggest snowfalls. And that, if that does in fact come to fruition, that could be easily top 5 material all time. Top 5 is 17 inches. The highest one was back into the Halloween storm back in 1991, where they had 28 inches. I don't think they get that high, but they're probably going to be anywhere from 18 to 2 feet of snow. 18 inches to 2 feet of snow in this area, probably reaching top 5 material and basically having extreme impacts. This is the latest update from this coast to coast major winter storm. We're looking at a prolonged event of major winter storm spreading across a large swath of very heavy snow from the West Coast all the way to the Northeast, guys. This is definitely a big system and leaving a mark. And you can see areas that could have moderate to major, even extreme impacts in and around the Minneapolis area. That's kind of rare to see. That's basically meaning we could be having prolonged power outages potentially. We could have a lot of extreme, delays. So yeah, just extreme impacts. Then we've got very high winds, snowfall rates 1 to 2 inches per hour. blizzard-like conditions. And that wintry mix starts to have treacherous travel. So just expect a lot of delays by air and by car over the next couple of days. And if that's not enough, we've got record lows to deal with and some dangerous wind chills as well, as we got true Arctic air that will be funneling into our northern regions. But the southern regions, it's all about the very warm temperatures and record high temperatures that look to unfold. But this is where the ice starts to set up as well. So we're looking at portions of central and especially eastern Iowa, getting into southern Wisconsin, especially that thing gets hit the hardest. Southern Michigan gets definitely have prolonged ice threat. Even some crippling ice could unfold with a lot of power outages in that area. And that ice extends into portions, central and northern portions of Pennsylvania and upstate New York have to be dealing with that ice as well. Maybe not accumulate as much as this, southern Michigan, but still having a lot of impacts in those areas. This is where the ice could unfold, like I mentioned, coming across the Des Moines area, especially in eastern Iowa, getting into northern portions of Illinois, southern portions of Wisconsin, getting into the Madison area. We'll start to see that ice in that region, but really prolific impacts into and around the Detroit area, into the Lansing area, the Grand Rapids area. Those areas could be hit the hardest with that compounding ice building up on all the trees and all the power lines. When all those trees get weighted, and then you have those higher wind gusts, that's a 1-2 punch, would knock down a lot of those trees and take down some of those power lines. That's why this is having, moderate to major, even some extreme impacts within these regions. But wow, look at Thursday, guys. You don't really see this that often. You've got well above average temperatures for a good part of the South and the Southeast. These are record high temperatures in a lot of places. And then you have record low temperatures, or at least record low maximum temperatures on Thursday, the 23rd. And what would that look like? This is the projection. Again, 79 potential record high temperatures looks to break on Thursday alone, with some of these places back, maybe portions like in Orlando, if they do in fact hit 91, that will be the highest February temperature ever since they started keeping records back in the 1800s. This is some rare stuff, guys. We could be even approaching 90 in North Carolina. All right, this is record high temperatures. At the same time, we've got 58 record low maximums across good part of the West and much of the northern plains here. That's extreme, guys. You don't really see that often. It's going to be a long time before you see a map like this having so many records look to unfold with the highs and lows across the nation. Big 100-degree swings on Thursday as far as the temperatures. But man, there is that prolific snowstorm that we'll be looking to unfold. So we got plenty of snow heading out into the Intermountain West. Those snows, like I mentioned, even get in parts of Southern California, believe it or not, draped across Arizona and parts of Santa Fe area. Flagstaff gets hit with about 18 inches of snow. The western slopes into Colorado, getting into Utah, getting into Wyoming with those blizzard conditions. And then there's our snow swath coming across portions of South Dakota, but really cranking, of course, portions of central and southern Minnesota, getting into northern Wisconsin, northern parts of Michigan. All these areas, at least a foot of snow, and that blankets across upstate New York, getting into Vermont, New Hampshire, into Maine between now and the end of the month. Be adding to those totals. But there's the ice, guys. That's the concern. This is where your major, moderate, and extreme impacts for ice, essentially, that runs across central and eastern Iowa, portions of northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, getting into especially southern Michigan here with extreme impacts, and then getting across portions of northern Pennsylvania, upstate New York, heading into Vermont, New Hampshire, portions of Massachusetts there between now and Friday. So now let's take a look at what's happening to come, because this is going to be another big change. This is your Enzo regions, and we've been talking about this La Nina. We've been dealing with this La Nina for like the last 3 years, and finally we're starting to see the La Nina lose its grip. It is trending away, guys. It's finally going to happen. It's trending towards that neutral. Every day it gets a little bit closer. What does that mean going forward? Well, we have that. Here's the latest update from the Climate Prediction Center. we finally coming out of that La Nina highlighted in that blue area, and then we head towards more of an Enzo neutral. So that's going to change the overall weather systems, which you've maybe seen the last 3 years, is where, you know, areas maybe into California start to get a lot more rain from these particular systems, as the southern jet stream will get a little bit more active. And you can see the trend. The trend is all the way neutral through spring and parts of summer. But by the time we head into fall and heading into the winter months, we could be looking at an El Nino, and something we really haven't seen in a long time. It's been, the last time we had more of a moderate La Nina was back in 2015. So it's been many, many years since we've seen something like this. But, you know, we could be looking at a trend of having more of a moderate La Nina, especially by the time we head into next winter. All right, so what does that mean going forward? So here's the jet stream heading in the next week. Essentially, we're going to have more systems coming in off the west. These areas have been in a relentless drought for a long time, complements of that La Nina. We're finally going to get the southern jet stream to really start activating. So that basically means, in layman's terms, more opportunities for more systems to form out west and trend west. Puts the west coast wetter, and it puts much of the southwest in a wetter state, with the more active subtropical jet stream. So as these systems dive across, here's the setup by Sunday. We'll have relentless systems this week, but they just continue heading in the next week as we have another system coming in into California, Southern California, into the desert Southwest. That will swing across and impact the country. And then yet we have another system that's waiting in the wings that will also look to unload by the time we get into middle of the following week, around March 1st timeframe. So we see relentless systems coming in off the West Coast. And then what's also changing over the next 10 days, here's your teleconnection. So this is more of a long-term view, but this is your Pacific North American oscillation being negative. That basically puts all the colder conditions well below average temperatures of what you've been experiencing between now and really the first week of March into our western states. All the western regions should be well below average. We take a look at the East Pacific oscillation. That's more or less your central and eastern 2/3 of the US. That's been predominantly positive. We see dips at times trying to go negative, but it just goes right back to positive. So we should start to see, or at least continue to see, well, above average temperatures for a good part of the central and eastern 2/3 of the US. And we take a look at the AO, which is your Arctic oscillation. That is also positive, but we start to see signs of it starting to dip negative by the time we get towards maybe the second week of March. So that's the AO. And then you have the NAO, which is your North American oscillation. That also tries to go negative. So basically what that means in layman's terms, well, that colder air will try to trend out of Canada and lower into the US. And we start to see a little bit more guidance trending that way, with at least with the AO and the NAO heading towards your end of your first week of March, definitely by your second week of March. So what's that look like for the next 10 days? So way it looks right now. So we've got record high temperatures across the southeast and much of the east coast here. We've got the PNA negative. That puts the below average temperature anomalies for a good part of the Pacific Northwest back into Canada and into British Columbia area. We actually have Alaska warmer, and we've got Greenland warmer. So as that NAO will turn negative in that into first, second week of November, as the EPO tries to go negative in that second week of November, back into into March, then that will put a little bit more colder anomalies to filter and try to filter into the Northeast, where you've obviously have experienced a well above average, winter. But look at the drought. This is where the drought persists, and I don't need to tell you where the La Nina's been, is out west, with these areas of just ongoing drought for a long time. We had that atmospheric river event that helped, but getting away, losing the La Nina will help more of a longer term view. And all these areas in brown are continue to experience a drought. But the good thing is, with the transformation into more of a neutral pattern, we're going to start to see more systems line up across out west. So This is why you see above average precipitation for much of the West Coast. And look at these rain amounts. These are going to be a lot, especially for the West Coast here. Look at the graph at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Look at that in Southern California. That's not a misprint, guys. That's 6 to 8 inches potentially. In and around Southern California, possibly the Los Angeles area, back into San Diego with those 6 to maybe 6 inches of rainfall over the next 10 days for those regions. And look at the desert Southwest getting the healthy rains. Even Vegas could get some rain. Back into Phoenix could get some rain. Healthy amounts of rain across portions of the South. So then you have another system coming across a good part of into the Missouri Valley, back into portions of the upper Midwest areas. Those areas could be picking up 1 to 4 inches of rainfall, over the next 10 days, and that filters in portions of the Mid-Atlantic states and heading into the Northeast. While much of the Southeast actually takes a little bit of a respite. They don't see as much rain as they have seen. Look at Florida, not much of anything over the next 10 days. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely hit the subscribe button and catch the next update while I protect you before and after storm.